Hello. I hope this is working. Um, Welcome. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Welcome to Coby's Brain, episode 5. We've got a very special show for you guys and girls and everyone who's watching today. Uh, because we've got a lot of very new, exciting content to talk about. So, if that sounds good to you, keep watching. And thanks to you all for tuning in. All right, we are going to get started with some movies. So, let's do it. So, the first movie that we are going to talk about is Big Hero 6. So, for those of you who don't know, Big Hero 6 was a 2014 Disney Animation Studios movie. So that's, it looks a lot like Pixar, but it's not Pixar. It's Disney Animation Studios, which in a lot of ways was renovated by the people at Pixar. So that kind of explains how, why these films look so similar to those of Pixar. But it was Big Hero 6 is actually based off of a Marvel comic, and it's a pretty good movie. So the film actually won the 2014 Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. So that's pretty cool. Shout out to this film. So basically this film is about a boy living in the futuristic city of San Francisco, which is a really cool, interesting, futuristic combination of San Francisco and Tokyo. And basically it's a technology it's a very technologically advanced city. And basically this kid right here is super into making technology. His brother also gets him to quit his life of underground robot fighting to start an engineering program at a university. And the brother ends up dying tragically in a fire. And basically the rest of the film is kind of a story of how this boy overcomes the grief of his brother passing away. So there's a couple of pretty cool lessons here. First of which is the importance of others in overcoming grief, and the how much we can benefit from reaching out to others and being open to others helping us through our grief. And yeah, basically the big character that this young boy has to help him, his name is Baymax, and Baymax is the giant white fluffy cloud looking character who's super cute. He's his brother's robot who basically the brother made the robot to be a medical assistant to people, an at-home medical assistant. And he's just like a super nice, super cute, super kind robot. And he ends up teaching the boy a lot of valuable lessons. Most notably, the fact that when the boy finally realizes who the reason his brother died, he wants to exact vengeance upon the person who was ultimately responsible for his brother's death. And the robot basically teaches him vengeance isn't going to solve anything. If you want to get better, that person should probably still be apprehended for what they did, but killing that person isn't going to accomplish anything. So, great movie, interesting lessons. But ultimately, great animation, but I don't know. Wasn't my favorite Disney animation film, pictures film, but it was still pretty good. Gave it a 7.7. So that's a good review. If you get around to seeing it, especially if you have Disney Plus, definitely recommend checking it out. All right. Next up, we have Tangled from 2010, also Disney Animation Studios. And this film is about Rapunzel. And basically, I don't know the story of Rapunzel super well, besides the fact that she has long hair. So I don't actually know how similar this film is to that of the original Rapunzel, but it's great. This Rapunzel, played by Mandy Moore, is this. It's a musical, hilarious musical, and Rapunzel basically is trapped in a tower because of her magic hair. Her mom, who actually kidnapped her, she's actually a princess, wants to keep her in the tower so that she can keep her in there forever. But basically, so in that way, it's kind of actually similar to Hotel Transylvania, now that I'm thinking about it. But regardless, because of the fact that it's like a parent who's lying to their kid to keep them at home, but this witch is actually super evil for keeping her at home because she also kidnapped her and just wants her so that she can stay young forever. So boo to that witch. And then basically this guy comes. This dude. He's a thief, and he climbs up into the tower to protect Rapunzel, or not. Not protect Rapunzel, to hide from people that are running after him. And basically Rapunzel convinces him to take her to the city to see the lanterns, and so she leaves her tower for the first time. And eventually they fall in love, and it's a great story. The rest is pretty much, I don't want to give anything else away, but what do I have to say about this movie? Genuinely one of the funniest Disney movies I've seen in a while. It's just, the humor is just really well done, and most of it actually comes just from the animation, specifically that of Maximus, who's this horse right here, who's just like adorable, super cute, super funny, eccentric horse, and Pascal, who's one of the my mom says Rapunzel is a fairy tale from long ago. I know that, Mom. That's what I said. But shout out to my mom for watching this show and commenting. But Pascal is also the chameleon. He's super funny. Just, great cast of characters. Really funny. Really good story. Really loved it. So gave that an 8.3. So it's a great rating, especially for a Disney animated feature that isn't Pixar. So loved this movie. If you have to choose between Tangled and Big Hero 6, I would actually probably suggest watching Tangled. But both are great. Both are great. So the next film that I recently saw was, in light of the protests going on, really wanted to watch a film that was going to be, that a lot of people have suggested that we watch, because it's just gives really provides a good black perspective. So, Dear White People's 2014 film. If you've heard about it, you actually might have also heard of the Netflix show that this movie spawned, and that's more recent. And I haven't actually seen that show, but I've heard it's really good. But Dear White People, really good show. It's about a fictitious Ivy League college known as Winchester, where there's a black community that the university is considering, making all housing mixed, so that this black community house, which is for the very small minority of students at this university that are black, where they can have an all black community. And they don't want it to go away. And so the leader in that effort is this girl named Samantha White, who's played by Tessa Thompson, who is Valkyrie in Thor. So shout out Tessa Thompson, she's great. And basically she's a student filmmaker. She hosts a show called Dear White People. And basically, so she, is really passionate about this cause, but simultaneously she has a white boyfriend, and she's not sure if she wants to really have to be the outspoken voice for the black community who has to lead all these rallies and do all this stuff, but she really cares about the cause. And she's kind of met with a lot of people who are saying, don't do these rallies criticizing the university and its policies, which is going to go against the donors of the university and what they want. And then there's also other really important characters in the film. Troy is the dean's son, and he wants to be a comedy writer, but his dad really wants him to go to law school and do all of these and to not be like a stereotyped black person. And then there's Coco, who is a really, really ambitious black girl who's not super convinced that racism is still a huge problem, and isn't really personally super in solidarity with the black community at Winchester. And then there's Lionel, who is a gay character, and he never fit in with really anyone, but definitely not with the black community, who he viewed as not accepting of him. So it's just a really interesting story. And eventually what happens at the university is there's a party led by a group of white students on campus, and it's a black themed party. And ultimately what happens is the university becomes aware that racism is still a huge problem, even though it wasn't. And it's just really interesting. There's a variety of black voices in the different perspectives from different black students on the topic of what should be done about the university and its somewhat racist policies, and the fact that a lot of students and faculty are convinced that we're living in a post-racial society, which is just isn't true. So, and I have to say, I found this film to be super interesting. I really feel like I learned a lot, gained just a larger perspective. There were a lot of things in the film that made me feel like, oh wow, like these are things that I do wrong. That I'm not someone who intentionally wants to offend anyone, but we all have a degree of ignorance in ourselves that when we don't properly do our research and try our best to understand, we can ourselves, even if we're not trying to do unintentionally say or do unintentionally racist things. And so that's just a really good perspective to have, and should inspire us to just keep learning. And then, but the fact that they had a black themed party was just super bad. So boo them, boo the students at that school who did that. The film was great, gave it an 8.2. So if you want a good film to watch that'll really kind of open your mind in a lot of ways and help you understand the perspective of a lot of people that you might otherwise not have gained, definitely recommend watching this film. All right, next up, this is a big task right here. I'm going to be talking about, and that should actually be 2019 to 2020 because it was broken up into two parts. I'm going to be talking about Rick and Morty Season 4, which concluded this a week ago, last Sunday. So, the latest season of Rick and Morty. Where to begin? I argued that it's probably one of the best seasons yet. I love this show. It's probably one of my current favorite cartoons on television, and I just thought that, the thing that I really like about this show is just how unique the premises of each episode are, and how much really goes into them. It seems like a new universe is kind of built in every single episode, and that's because the whole premise of the show is just the idea that there exist infinite realities, right? So the existence of infinite realities leads to a lot of possible scenarios for Rick and Morty, Summer, Beth, and Jerry to enter. And I think this season did a really great job for a lot of reasons. So I'll real quick go through the 10 episodes. The first one I think was one of my favorites, possibly ever. Edge of Tomorrow, Rick Die, Rick Repeat, which is where Rick finds these crystals that basically give my mom says to leave my nose alone. I will do my best. So crystals that Rick finds that Morty uses to guide his fate towards a specific outcome, which is where the girl he likes ends up saying, "I love you," and it's a really interesting. The crystals show you how you die, and so Morty uses the crystals to arrive at the fate that he wants. So it's a pretty interesting premise, really funny. Next episode 2 was Old Man in the Seat, which is just a good dive into how. Okay, also I should mention that in the previous episode, when how to actually like a really good lesson, which I think is pretty uncommon and not something that they intentionally even want in Rick and Morty episodes, where when Morty realizes what his fate can be, Rick says, "All right, you have to live in the moment, but it's also good to plan a little bit." So a nice happy medium between those two contrasting philosophies about whether living in the moment is the virtuous way to go versus not living in the moment, and just planning. So a little bit of both is important. So that was an interesting insight from those working at Rick and Morty, the creators of this show. Old Man in the Seat was episode 2. Interesting look into how lonely Rick is when he creates a world specifically for him to poop, and how when someone else intrudes on that, it's almost like Rick gaining a friend, but Rick is just too stubborn to accept that this character is actually going to be a friend of his. And I think that's an interesting aspect of the show, is that Rick's character just continuously develops as the show goes on. Third episode, One Crew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Morty. The episodes, I don't know where these names come from. I think they all have to have Rick or Morty in them, but regardless, and they have to play off of a movie, but just an episode making fun of heists. And Elon Musk is actually a guest star in this episode, and he's Elon Tusk, so he's just Elon Musk with tusks. It's pretty funny. Clone Hoarder Special Rick Tim's Morty. This is the one where Morty convinces Rick to get him a dragon, and magic becomes a an element of the show kind of for the first time that I can remember, and the conclusion that Rick tries to establish is that science is superior to magic. So, hot take, but we'll 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 let it slide. Rattlestar Rick Lactica, interesting episode. This was the last episode in the first part of season 4, where there's a world of snakes, and the snakes discover time travel. It's just cool to see a world of snakes. I'm obviously simplifying these episodes a ton, much to the, I would just say you got to see these episodes. I gave the show a 9.3. Basically, you need to see the show. I recommend watching the show for sure. I think almost anyone would find the show funny. Anyways, I'll go into part 2 real quick. Never Ricking Morty, about a train, which is actually just a story device for an anthological episode. Primordius was episode 7, about these parasites known as Glorzos taking over the mouths of of Rick and it's hard to even explain. I should have rewatched the second part. The other 3 episodes, the Vat of Acid episode, Childrick of Mort, and Starmort Return of the Jerry, were also really good episodes. Starmort Return of the Jerry was the final episode of the season, where there's, again, more character development regarding Rick and the fact that he's kind of just a problematic father in a lot of ways, which is pretty interesting. Then Vat of Acid episode, which is episode 8, probably my favorite episode of the season, was just a classic. Basically, Rick, watch that one. That one was a classic. Loved it. Rick has to convince Morty in a very, very roundabout way about the fact that his plan to hide in a fake vat of acid was a good idea. And so that just isn't indicative of how stubborn Rick is. And, Rick is just a fascinating character, the smartest man in the universe, but he can do anything, have anything he wants, but, he's not happy. It's just kind of, and he's a very flawed character in a lot of ways, besides the fact that he has this incredible gift. So, just a really interesting look at a really interesting group of characters. Very excited for season 5 of Rick and Morty, obviously. Keep it up. I hope it comes sooner than it probably will. Alright. So I don't really listen to that much music besides trap music, but Kygo released a new album, and for those of you who don't know, Kygo is a Norwegian DJ who was in a large part responsible for popularizing the tropical house genre, and this was his 3rd album, and I love Kygo. I think he's great. A lot of people make fun of me for that because his music is it all kind of sounds the same. And yes, I agree. It does all sound the same. However, it's good. So it's like, let's say there's a burger that you love, and a restaurant with a burger that you love. All of the burgers taste the same, but that taste is good. So you'll still go to that restaurant again and again and again because the burger's good. Maybe you won't go there exclusively, but you know what you're getting and you know that you're going to like it. So, good job, Kygo. I gave your album an 8. And I'm probably going to be listening to this album a lot just to study but like work. It's just a nice... It really cheers you up listening to this kind of music. You listen to it and you're just like, it just puts a smile on your face. So, I think Kygo's a talented pianist. So, keep an eye out for him. He's really talented, really fun to listen to his music. So, yeah, good job, Kygo. All right, now we're gonna transition into Coby's Thought Blog. So, an interesting conversation that I've been pondering as of lately was kind of with regards in the context of something I talked about earlier, which was why do we even really need to learn things anymore if all of the information in the world is at our fingertips? And the answer is based upon this is in the epistemology category of Coby's brain, of Coby's thought blog. So I think the answer to the question I brought up earlier of why it doesn't really matter that why potentially, I don't know for sure, it doesn't necessarily matter that we have access to all the information in the world because of the distinction between information and knowledge, right? So information all around us, it's data, it's everywhere, and it's super easy to get the information that we need by Google searching whatever it is that we could possibly want. However, I think it's very important to know that there is a very clear distinction between information versus knowledge. And so someone at work actually a couple days brought this up. I forgot who it was, but so I won't take credit for this, but I think it's pretty well established that what distinguishes information from knowledge are two things. One, so information is here, knowledge is here. So what takes it from here to here? Two things. One is experience, and the other is application. So if the information is not experience, if you don't experience something that has to do with the information, it will not actually be in your brain. Obviously, that sounds obvious. And two, if you've never applied it, you don't know what that information is capable of doing. So information is not power. Knowledge is power. And so I guess that is just a testament to the fact that it's still important to learn things in spite of the fact that all the information we could ever want is super accessible to us. So shout out to everyone out there who continues to attempt to attain knowledge. Information just doesn't cut it. We need that knowledge. So super open to continuing to debate that. If anyone's got anything in the chat. All right, next time. Keep me posted about that. You can what's actually really great now about Coby's Thought Blog is you can leave, once these are all published, you can actually leave comments on the specific post and we can continue the conversation there via those threads. So looking forward to continuing to go into that, figuring out exactly how, and also figuring out how we can take the abundance of information that we have now and help turn that into knowledge. Next up, we are going to be talking about criticism, which is the majority of what I do on this site, or on this vlog. So this will definitely be an ongoing discussion. Today's discussion will not be the end of our discussion of criticism. And for the record, this person up here, Roger Ebert, one of the best film critics, arguably of all time, passed away somewhat recently, unfortunately. No. I don't have a sad noise, unfortunately. I'll make a note to get one of those soon. But criticism is it's what I do a lot of. So, based on this upcoming discussion, you'll see it's what I attempt to do a lot of. So, the way that we're going to look at this is in the context of film criticism. But again, I offer critiques of music, of games, of TV shows. So it's all pretty applicable. So the importance of criticism is one based on the notion that films do not alone make culture. And again, a lot of these ideas are coming from a lecture by Professor George Karstosha at USC. Shout out to him, super smart guy, very talented. And he came up with a lot of these ideas. So films alone do not make a culture resonant, but talking and engaging with them does. So an important idea then is to distinguish between reviews, which are probably mostly what I do, versus criticism. So a review is like a consumer report, right? You can review a car and how good it is, but a criticism goes many steps beyond a review. Criticism is deeper engagement, which, touches on issues, style, techniques, and engagement with life, and application to the culture in general. So basically, if you're doing a criticism versus a review, you're applying. You're not just saying, all right, aesthetically or whatever, this is a good or it's a bad film or piece of music or anything. You're looking at where that piece of art or whatever fits into the culture, fits into the overall culture in general, and you're making connections between different aspects of the culture to that specific piece of art. But that's still one step below academic criticism, which is what film studies students do, which is looking at the work within a specific context, like auteur, psychoanalytic, feminist, queer, etc. So in that case, you're looking at how, instead of just like the overall culture in general, you're looking at it within a specific subset of the culture, which requires a lot of knowledge of that specific subset of the culture. So basically, what's really important to be a good critic is probably something that is a lifelong process. It's not something that I think I do quite yet. I'm hoping to get there. So while I would say, and here's another thing to make a distinction between is personal taste versus critical judgment. And that distinction is basically, right, there's personal taste. And again, my reviews, or what I would like to consider critiques, are probably just personal taste. They're probably just my personal taste in things, whereas critical judgment is looking at the objective criteria of something like aesthetics and saying, how does this work hold up to the overall objective criteria? And so that just requires knowledge of those objective criteria, which only an expert in that subject has. So again, personal taste largely influences all reviews. And if you're talking personal taste and you're not talking about the objective criteria that are going to give you a truly valuable assessment of that piece of work, you're really not getting a whole lot further than review. And so ultimately this gets into the idea is to truly be a good critic like Roger Ebert, you have to obviously know a lot about film. You have to know a ridiculous amount about film. But then you also need to know a lot about the world in general. So I hope that by watching Coby's Brain, and for me, by making Coby's Brain and continuing to engage with these ideas, we can all aspire to be critics in our own right. So, and keep acquiring knowledge. So keep up that quest for knowledge. Information just won't do. All right. Thank you for watching Coby's Brain. Again, we have new episodes every Sunday at 4, and we're looking forward to seeing you all there. Have a good rest of your week. Goodbye.